Most people believe that ghosts are random, that they appear anywhere, anytime, without reason. But that belief comes from fear, not understanding. Every entity that has ever been documented, whether in folklore, religion, or modern paranormal investigations, follows a pattern. They choose specific environments, react to specific emotions, and reveal themselves in very specific ways. Some stay close to bloodlines, some attach themselves to locations, and some are not even dead at all. Tonight, this is not about stories meant to scare you. This is about understanding where these entities exist, what they do once they manifest, and how their presence is recognized long before they are ever seen. Banshee. Banshees are rarely found wandering randomly. They remain close to ancestral family homes, old countryside land, or burial grounds tied to specific bloodlines. Unlike other entities, a banshee does not hunt or attack. Its role is to warn. When a banshee manifests, it attaches itself to a single individual whose death is approaching. The sound it produces is not just a scream. It is a mixture of grief and announcement. This presence is usually recognized through overwhelming emotional heaviness, sudden cold winds at night, and a wailing sound that only one person can clearly hear. If multiple people hear it, folklore suggests it is not a true banshee, but something mimicking it. Demon. Demons do not remain bound to one location unless invited. They are most commonly found in places filled with repeated suffering, abandoned religious buildings, homes with violent history, or around individuals experiencing emotional weakness. A demon's primary activity is manipulation. It slowly alters thoughts, amplifies anger, and creates distrust between people. Unlike ghosts, demons reveal themselves subtly at first. Their presence is identified through drastic personality changes, hatred toward sacred objects, and intelligent movement of objects that appear intentional rather than random. Demons do not want to frighten immediately. They want control. Daojin. Daojin entities are believed to exist where violence refuses to fade. They are commonly associated with conflict-heavy locations such as battle zones, riot-prone areas, or households filled with constant aggression. These entities do not whisper or appear visually very often. Instead, they influence behavior. People in Daojin-infested areas report sudden rage, arguments without reason, and physical confrontations that escalate unnaturally fast. A Daojin is identified not by what you see, but by how peace disappears wherever it lingers. Goryu. Goryu are ancient, powerful spirits bound to sacred locations like old temples, mountains, or forbidden ruins. They are not roaming entities and do not interact unless their territory is violated. When disturbed, they manifest through environmental changes, sudden storms, ground vibrations, intense pressure in the chest, and overwhelming fear before even entering the area. People who encounter a Goryu often report knowing they should not be there before they understand why. Hantu. Hantu entities are commonly found in jungles, rural villages, and long-forgotten roads. They are patient beings that prefer observation over confrontation. A Hantu does not chase, it waits. Their presence is often identified by unnatural silence in nature, sudden loss of animal sounds, and the feeling of being watched from behind. Witnesses usually see brief glimpses, something standing still, then vanishing instantly. The most unsettling sign of a Hantu is the realization that it noticed you long before you noticed it. Jinn. Jinn are not ghosts. They were never human and do not originate from death. They inhabit abandoned places, deserts, old wells, ruins, and sometimes attach themselves to individuals. Jinn are capable of shape-shifting and influencing dreams. Their presence is often recognized through recurring nightmares, hearing voices in unknown languages, and sudden fear tied to a specific location rather than a visible cause. A jinn rarely shows its true form at first, choosing instead to observe and test boundaries. Mare entities remain close to places of sleep. Bedrooms, resting areas, and isolated sleeping environments are their domain. Their activity is focused entirely on the human mind during vulnerable states. A mare causes sleep paralysis, pressure on the chest, and vivid hallucinations of shadowy figures sitting or standing nearby. These experiences feel extremely real and are often mistaken for medical conditions, but repeated occurrences in the same environment suggest a mare's presence. Moroi are commonly tied to graveyards, old villages, and places associated with improper burials. They feed on life energy rather than physical violence. Victims experience unexplained fatigue, recurring illness, and gradual weakening without medical cause. Moroi are identified through repeated nighttime disturbances, dreams of being drained, and a steady decline in health that stops only after leaving the area. Obake exist wherever humans do. They are shapeshifters, capable of appearing as people, animals, or even objects. Their activity revolves around deception rather than harm. Obake are recognized when something familiar feels wrong, repeated phrases spoken unnaturally, expressions that do not match emotion, or actions that feel slightly delayed. Instinctive discomfort is the strongest indicator of an obake's presence. Oni remain in places marked by punishment, war, or extreme suffering. They are aggressive entities driven by brute force rather than manipulation. Their activity includes loud impacts, heavy footsteps, and physical damage to surroundings. Oni do not hide their presence. They announce it through destruction. Fear during an Oni encounter is immediate and overwhelming. Onryu are bound to the locations where betrayal, abuse, or emotional destruction occurred. These spirits remain because their hatred outlives death. Their activity manifests as long-term misfortune rather than sudden attacks. Families affected by an Onryu often experience repeating tragedies, similar dreams across generations, and an unshakable sense of sorrow tied to one place. The twins operate as two presences within a single haunting. They prefer larger locations where they can act independently, creating events in separate areas at the same time. One twin is often more aggressive, while the other remains quieter and more distant. Their behavior is designed to overwhelm and disorient. The most reliable way to identify the twins is through simultaneous activity sounds, interactions, or disturbances occurring far apart but within moments of each other. Escaping one often means unknowingly moving closer to the other. Wraiths are entities that avoid physical contact with the ground. They are commonly found in open spaces, hallways, and areas where movement feels unrestricted. Their behavior is stealth-based, approaching without sound or visible disturbance. Wraiths are identified through absence rather than presence. Footprints suddenly stop, motion sensors fail to detect movement, and the feeling of being watched intensifies from above rather than around. A wraith does not announce itself. It closes distance silently. Yurei remain bound to strong emotional attachments. They inhabit places tied to betrayal, loss, or unresolved pain, often near the site of death. Their activity increases when emotional energy is disturbed, such as through reminders of their past or disruptions to their environment. Yurei are identified by intense emotional shifts, sudden sadness, anxiety, or grief without clear cause. Unlike violent entities, A Yurei's presence feels heavy rather than threatening, as if the location itself is grieving. Yokai. Yokai are not a single type of entity, but a category of supernatural beings with widely varying behaviors. They exist wherever human activity intersects with folklore, belief, and environment. Some yokai trick, some protect, and some harm without warning. Identifying a yokai is difficult because their behavior lacks consistency. Sudden changes in atmosphere, unexplained events that feel intentional yet playful or cruel, and reactions that defy logic are common signs. Yokai reveal themselves only when they choose to, making certainty impossible until it is often too late. Mailing. A mailing entity prefers darkness that feels deliberate rather than empty. It is most commonly associated with quiet rooms, shadow-heavy corners, and locations where lights are rarely used. Unlike aggressive entities, mailing avoids direct confrontation. Its behavior is rooted in observation. It watches human movement, routines, and reactions, waiting until it fully understands its surroundings. The clearest way to recognize a mailing is through its interaction with light. Lights tend to switch off when people approach. Rooms feel darker than they should, and the sensation of being watched intensifies only when silence takes over. A mailing does not create chaos. It creates awareness that something unseen is paying attention. Poltergeist. Poltergeists are rarely tied to history or death. Instead, they manifest in places filled with emotional tension, stress, or unresolved conflict. Homes with constant arguments, suppressed anger, or psychological pressure become ideal environments for their activity. A poltergeist expresses itself through violent movement, objects thrown across rooms, furniture shifting on its own, and loud, sudden impacts. These events are often unpredictable and escalate quickly. The key way to identify a poltergeist is intent. Objects are not simply falling, they are being directed. The chaos feels targeted, as if something is reacting to the emotional energy present rather than existing independently. Ryu. Raiju entities are linked to storms, electricity, and sudden surges of power. They are most often encountered during intense thunderstorms or in areas where electrical disturbances occur without explanation. Raiju are believed to travel through lightning, wires, and electromagnetic energy, appearing only when conditions allow it. Their presence is identified by flickering lights, malfunctioning electronics, and electrical devices activating on their own during storms. Unlike other entities, Raiju does not linger long. It arrives with the storm and disappears when the energy fades, leaving behind a feeling that something moved through the space rather than stayed within it. Revenant. Revenants do not occupy locations randomly. They remain close to individuals they are connected to, often those who cause them harm or those who resemble unfinished targets. A revenant's behavior is direct and aggressive. It does not observe, manipulate, or wait patiently. It hunts. Movements associated with revenants are fast, relentless, and purposeful. People who encounter a revenant report sudden bursts of fear, heavy footsteps rapidly approaching, and an overwhelming instinct to flee. A revenant is identified by intensity. The environment shifts instantly from calm to threatening, as if something has locked onto a target and will not stop until it reaches it. Shade. Shades prefer isolation. They manifest in quiet, empty rooms and grow weaker in the presence of multiple people. Their activity decreases when attention is focused on them and increases when they are left undisturbed. A shade does not seek to scare openly. Instead, it thrives in stillness, feeding on silence and absence. The most common way to recognize a shade is through inactivity. Paranormal events stop when others enter the room and resume when the space is empty again. A shade's presence feels subtle, almost absent, yet heavy like something withdrawing just beyond perception. Spirit. Spirits are the most human-like of all entities. They remain in locations tied to their former lives, such as homes, familiar environments, or places of emotional significance. Spirits interact gently at first, responding to communication and reacting to respect or disrespect. Their behavior is balanced, neither immediately hostile nor completely passive. A spirit can be identified through consistent, calm activity, soft sounds, mild movements, or subtle interactions that feel purposeful rather than chaotic. However, when provoked or disrespected, a spirit can become aggressive, showing that familiarity does not equal safety. Day. Thay entities are defined by change over time. They often manifest strongly at the beginning of a haunting, displaying intense aggression, rapid movement, and frequent activity. As time passes, however, their energy weakens. Thay are commonly found in places with high human interaction, where they can age through exposure. Identifying a Thay requires patience. The haunting begins violently and gradually slows, with events becoming less frequent and less intense. This aging process is unique and makes the Thay one of the few entities whose danger decreases rather than grows. These entities are not everywhere. They are not random. They follow emotion, history, and territory. And once you understand their patterns, the darkness begins to make sense. If you ever feel watched, drained, or unsettled without reason, it may not be imagination. It may be recognition. Because the dark does not announce itself loudly, it leaves signs. This was Noctira Dark Tales, and the unseen is never unorganized.